How do we know it's 7:59?
Because it says so on my Mac.
How do we know that's right?
Macs are always right.
Macs are always right.
Correction, Master's Mac is always right. Not even close.
I really like you.
Not even close.
That is so true. That is absolutely right.
Wait. I heard Nikita say that my Mac isn't right.
I'm not going to go into details. It would take up the whole hour.
Okay, too. We should probably have a session on Master's Mac is always right.
Actually, it's 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay. Ava, you can start recording. Thank you very much. We always start by thanking Ava so much for giving us this space and this time and giving up of her evening twice a month to host us. And thank you, Ava. We just so appreciate it. We also start out by giving a few moments of silence in case there's anybody that has a pressing issue that they would like to bring up, even if it's to either just to say themselves or to have input from any of the others of us. So I will be quiet for about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and if I hear no one coming on, then I'll begin.
Are you really counting?
No.
Okay, go.
Hearing no response, he will move on and say, welcome everybody. We have had to postpone Slave Mikey because he needed to serve somebody whose hurt was worse than his. And I'll just leave it at that. And it was what he did was very appropriate, and I support him. And we'll try and reschedule him as soon as we can. All right, so this last weekend we were at Master's MS gathering, Master Slave Gathering, and this is it was a first-time event. It was very small, about 80, 90 people. Hello, Carrie. And it's really a subset of the Master Slave Conference that Master Tayano puts on. So this was put on by
Northeast Master and Slave.
Northeast Master and Slave.
2012.
Mm-hmm. And sort of their coterie. They're sort of an extended family, and they decided to put on this small conference. Mm. And I'm very fond of Master D. I had photographed his capping at the Master Slave Conference, so we asked if we could come out and participate. However, the schedule was set up so that we couldn't present on Sunday because we had to get back to Philadelphia. We flew into Philadelphia instead of Wilmington, and we had to be driven back to the airport, and there was a time conflict with when tonight's presentation was scheduled. So what you're going to see tonight was essentially what I had prepared for the conference last Sunday, 2 days ago. And that being said, I'm going to begin, and I'm going to start by saying that we have. How do we do this?
What are you looking for?
He was looking to advance. This is so interesting. This is going to maybe challenging.
It was advancing earlier.
We have a lot of material tonight. There you go. However, we are under no pressure to get through all the slides.
Lucky PowerPoint. Because
what we don't cover tonight, we're going to cover another time. Ta-da. I am really interested in your reactions to these ideas. I'm not interested in this being a presentation. So I'm not going to really elaborate on the ideas because I've already, some of these things are ideas I've already written about in the book that I'm about to come out with, but also some of these are ideas that I'm just developing, and I may not really have a position on them, and I'm interested in hearing some feedback and reactions. So I will start out by asking sort of the conceptual question, why are couples together in a general sense? And to kick off the discussion, I would ask the question, what kinds of purposes drive an MS relationship? So I'm open for I'd like some interaction. You're gonna, raise your hands, and Master, do you have some way of, can we tell who's raising their hand? Nikita and Ursula, go ahead.
I don't.
Are you talking about specifically MS couples or just couples in general?
I would say I'd like to keep this to MS. So what kinds of...
Unless you don't identify as that.
And by the way, if you don't identify as MS, but you're in the room, that's close enough.
You count.
Well, interestingly, the reason that we're together in an MS relationship is a similar sort of reason why I would be with somebody in a vanilla relationship. We have a lot of similar interests. We have similar, my God, our religions are the same. We have similar goals in life. We have similar things that we like to do. We both like to go hiking as opposed to shopping. Like, there's just really a lot of really similar interests. A lot of our kinks are similar. This is why we stay together. This is why we are together. It's why we came together in the first place.
Okay. Pastor Michael?
And Slave Angie has joined us as well. I'd have to say that we have very similar approaches to what Nikita and Ursula just said. We have very complementary goals, outlooks in life, and ethics and morals. But one of the things that we've always said was that we feel like that together we're part of a bigger whole, that the sum is, or that together it's definitely more than just the sum of the parts, that the chemistry that we have together, the things that we do together are much bigger. Slave Angie, do you want to add anything? No, she's good.
I agree with that. I think that alone or separate, we're pretty good, but together we do what we can't do alone.
I will go along with that. Anybody want to add anything else to that? The next question are, what are some relationship motivations? So do you have some way as a team of staying focused on the purpose of your relationship? I'll move on. Yes?
No, it's taking time to formulate an answer to that. That's a very chunky, meaty question.
Almost all the slide questions are. That's why I wasn't sure how far we'd get into this.
I mean, what we talk about this in our class about ebbs and flows, where you kind of can lose your flow, if you will. You lose that connection, that dance. You're not in sync. You're not aligned. For us, alignment, and I think we've spoken about this before, alignment's very big, where Angie is aligned to what I want, to where I want to go, and I'm going in directions that I know are beneficial to us as a whole. So keeping that on track is a big priority, and that's what motivates me to keep the relationship the way it is, because it works.
Nikita, Ursula?
Hang on, Angela's going to add something.
And I would say that for motivation, what motivates us, and especially me a lot, is that when we get through the hard times or we come back together, through those periods, you almost feel this in cadence with the other person. You have a real synergy that goes back and forth, and when you feel that, it's very fulfilling.
I'm going to add our viewpoint after Nikita and Ursula. They'd raised their hands earlier.
We had to just sort of quickly look at each other and decide our relationship motivation, but we've always known what it is. Our big motivation in our relationship is to grow, to become better people, more rounded people, to learn more about ourselves, to become
the best particular person you can be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the things that motivate us the most are reading, going to workshops and classes, listening to podcasts. A lot of the time, our big motivations are.
I'm going to throw out, because all of those things just lead to better self-examination and self-discovery, to ensure that you're following the path that is best for you. And it doesn't matter where that path goes, it just has to be the best path.
I have to absorb this, just a minute. That's different than I would have approached it, which is exactly why I wasn't sure how far we get into these. We have 18 slides, and you're on slide 1, really.
It's like a presentation.
Well, no, but see, the thing of this is that you guys are so senior. You have different viewpoints from us. I should also say, we're about to start exploring an area. I don't know where we're going to go with it, but Master at her work is looking into Myers-Briggs scores and how it relates in a work setting, and I'm going to try and explore how Myers-Briggs scores affect MS dynamics. For example, we are both INTJ, and it matters, that tends to matter in our case, because that means that we are low on emotion, high on intellect, and so I would have to say that my sense is that although Master and I individually are interested in in becoming our better selves, that's probably not something we're doing in a relationship sense. That in our relationship sense, we're committed to turning as much knowledge about MS as we can to rehash it and to make it understandable within the community. So we find that the more we get out, that we're better at conferences, we're better together as a couple at conferences where we feel that we're fulfilling the purpose of our relationship than when we stay home weekend after weekend after weekend.
Yeah, but I was going to go to the same place that you just went, that as long as we're focused on helping others, I think that our family motto and creed is that we improve our life and improve the lives around us, sort of like the pay it forward kind of thing. And if we find that we're not fulfilling our motivation because we're not working, we're not writing, we're not creating, we're not out touching, and we're just home with each other, that we can do that for a while and enjoy each other because that's part of our growth and that's part of what we do. But if we do it for any extended amount of time, then it's almost like we're not fulfilling our relationship purpose.
Yeah. Anyone want to comment on that?
Slave Angie was just saying that feels like how she feels.
And that's kind of what propelled us through, or myself through the title years and things like that we had to take it out and share it. And we do that when we write our classes, when I'm preparing for a submissive weekend or whatever. I just feel like it has to be taken out and shared, and it becomes so much more.
Okay. Well, let me, yes, Nikita?
I think the better we become as individuals, the more help and assistance we can give to other people, the more I'm able to understand my own motivations and some of my own thought processes, the more I'm able to talk to other people who might have similar experiences or similar feelings. And by sharing my experiences, we are able to share even more, and it seems like they get a lot of help from that.
Well, and again, I mean, you mentioned, so many of us being a little more senior than others perhaps in the MS community, and I think that anybody who lives this lifestyle for any length of time and strives for that insight into their own being is always going to want to pass on not just that knowledge, but how they made it through all the different particular trials and tribulations that we all run into in some form or another. And those people who are just now approaching that particular trial, it might be they've just started their first MS relationship, or they might be at a point where their relationship was close and now they've had to move 100 miles away. Whatever it happens to be, any number of these trials, they are all aided by being able to find out how somebody else got through it. It may not be the same as what they need to do, but it helps them even just knowing that somebody else made it.
I agree completely. Anybody else want to comment before I move to the next bullet point? Okay, well, what I'd ask was, why do couples stay together? Tangible reasons, intangible reasons, and then on the tangible reasons, as I was wondering to the extent to which people stay together because the other person brings in money, provides great sex, their kinks match, the other person is really loving, they have invaluable personal, they're an invaluable personal assistant or servant. You know, what's sort of going on here? Why did, what other reasons can you guys propose for why people, in fact, do stay together for tangible reasons?
So this is the comment that a lot of vanillas say, that they stay together for the children.
Exactly. That's exactly. Well, that gets on to the next slide, the intangible reasons, and I'll run through these and then back it up. But the intangible reasons, you're staying out of hope that things will get better, out of a sense of duty, or out of inertia. It's just too much trouble to leave. So if you go back now and say, okay, what are the tangible reasons for staying? I can understand that there's an emotional support, there's a the other person supports you emotionally, financially. In my experience, I think that the fact that our kinks match as well as they do is a gift of the gods. I think that's very unusual.
But I don't know truly that I would stay together for a tangible reason. That's not motivation enough to stay together.
Okay, so that's then the question to everybody in the room. Are tangible reasons sufficient to keep you together, or do you need intangible reasons of your own devising that are your bond?
This is the big question.
I know that. Every one of these slides is like that. Why do you stay together?
Slave Angie wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, I think you would have to first, when you're discussing this, the tangible and the intangible, I think there is slightly looking at the suggestions that there might be differences of opinions what the tangible and intangible even mean.
I absolutely agree.
So to even start there, so then how do you say that, you know, where does the bond fall that you form? And I think that when you stay together in an MS relationship, it's a very much different kind of bond. I wouldn't say stronger, better, faster, or any of those, but there's a spirituality between a master and slave that is very deep. So I don't know where that falls in between your definitions of what is tangible or intangible.
And Slave Angie and I often have these kinds of discussions because I deal with facts and she deals with emotions. And I see the nods over there, so you guys know exactly what we're talking about. You know, the spirituality is one of the biggest intangibles. And just as a comment on the slide, I feel like the intangibles all were negative. but I think the intangibles were are probably the more positive reasons that that we stay in this MS relationships. I have very tangible reasons. I mean, I have somebody that takes care of me, that somebody that, you know, has turned over and surrendered to my authority, and, you know, I do that to the benefit of myself and to others. But you know, the intangible of just having someone that matches in a lot of these things, but yet, like I said, there's a feeling of being involved in something bigger, something more wonderful, something where growth always happens in the most unique ways. You know, I don't know that I can measure that with metrics. It's very much an emotional, spiritual thing that I can't really define. The other thing that we stay together is, and it's an intangible, but it's not so much duty in a negative sense, but pride in that duty. We don't give up at the drop of a hat. You know, we've slogged through some really tough issues, both because we're too damn stubborn. We don't like to give up. But that's a good intangible as versus a negative one.
You're sending Boyd to get a notepad and a pen.
He's got all of his the PowerPoint written out, and he's got blank pieces of paper on the back, and he's got a pen, so he doesn't have to get up and try and disentangle himself from the Let me write this down. And I know that Ursula and Nikita had their hand up, but I want to get this down. It is the really the pride of duty. That was very good, and I will footnote you, Master Michael. Okay. Anything else, Master Michael or Slave Angie, or should we go over to Nikita and Ursula?
No, we're done. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Nikita and Ursula, you've got the floor.
I could say that we're together for all kinds of practical reasons, and I've got a very strong practical side to me, you know, that could list all of those reasons, but none of them really matter to me. The biggest reason I would have to say is I trust Miss. I trust Miss like no one else. There's no one else that I know in all the world that looks after me the way she does and that is interested in, you know, my best interests and looking after me and taking care of me and seeing that I grow. I trust her. And I don't trust people very easily or very quickly. And I would have to say that pride of duty is a really good one as well. I mean, we've been together through some really tough times. And yeah, and they've been hard, but there was never any thought of, her biggest concern was that I was going to leave her during our hardest times, and I had to reassure her that I would never leave her, you know, because we're going to get through it. And I have to admit that I'm extremely stubborn. I'm probably the most stubborn person I know, but I know that we can get through everything together. You know, together we can get through all of it, and we have, and it's been a really incredible journey and a really great experience.
So do you think you're motivated by tangible or intangible, Mr. Logic?
Well, I would say the tangible means a lot to me. The way you manage me means a lot to me. That our kinks match means a lot to me, and that we have a generally cerebral approach to MS matters to me. That you're as passionate about MS as I am matters to me. So those all make a lot of difference. Another thing that matters to me is that you got a really nice pussy, and you know how to use it.
I told you to tell all your friends, but I didn't mean on live TV here.
Well, those are all important. You do sex really well. You do communications really well.
Okay, but the question that I'm asking is, you stay because of this checklist, or you stay for a reason that's outside of the checklist?
Well, outside of the checklist, we have a MS bond that rather supersedes any of those.
Which is what everybody's speaking about. That there is this tangible reason for being together that that in your slideshow made it sound like, well, maybe intangible is not great, but intangible is that thing that motivates us.
I actually think I used the titling wrong. I'm not sure I really meant tangible and intangible.
So, so I would say an intangible reason for me to be in this relationship is I can't imagine not being in the relationship. I can make my own money. I can masturbate. I can take care of myself. I can do all of the tangible things that that are given to me within a relationship. It's wonderful that there's somebody here willing to do this for me, and I'm honored by that gift. But really, what's keeping me here is that I can't not be here. I have to be in this relationship, and it has to be with you. And that's bigger than me and my ability to make a decision.
Okay. Anyone wish to add anything? Okay, so I think we've actually covered these, and I unfortunately agree that these are very negative, and I think I got my headings off, and I'm going to therefore go to the next slide. Care to share some examples of ways that you communicate love to your partner? By the way, this is obviously a completely new, it's a non sequitur, it's a completely new topic, and many of these slides are going to represent sort of conceptual shifts. This is just one of them. So care to share anything about how you communicate love? And my question under that was,
look.
What? Well, I was trying to learn how to use these silly animations. What makes you think that they interpret their action as an I love you statement? And, yes, Mr. Michael, and then how do they let you know that they get it? And how do you avoid delivering I love you messages that you really want to receive, but that don't necessarily connect with your partner? You still want the mic, Mr. Michael?
Oh, sure. I would say that I highly recommend the Languages of Love book because you're going to laugh that, you know, we've been together almost 12 years, and it's only recently that I've really figured out what Slave Angie's love language to receive is, and I'm quite pleased with that. But that is a very powerful tool for understanding how you can ask and how you can give these types of love statements to your partner. So finding the ways that fulfill her and mean something to her. Angie is very much about touch and about activities. I'm very much about words and affirmation and actions, less so than touch or gifts or anything like that. So by communicating using that language of what we see as love, and then communicating back what our partners see as love, I think that's very powerful and important, and that could pretty much answer all three of those questions.
Yes.
Yeah. In the category of sort of personal sharing, I was married for the first time 17 years, and after the marriage was over, I left because I couldn't really figure out how she figured things out. That's as close as I've ever been able to explain it to anybody. I couldn't figure out the way she thought, and it finally just wore me down. We remained friends, but I couldn't handle it. And once I started learning and reading and writing about communication, what I realized was that I never understood her love language, and I didn't understand her "I love you" messages, and I don't think she ever got mine. I think our interests were always in backpacking and in doing things like that, and we sort of operated in our own worlds. And I didn't know enough during that. We only got married when we were 28, and we were married for 17 years. But I really didn't have, I didn't understand the material on this slide until the last 5 or 6 years when I've been studying it. Anybody want to comment on this, or shall I move on? Moving on.
I do want to say that that's one of the myths that we like to bust about MS, is that it shouldn't include love. I mean, for some people, that's perfectly valid and it works for them. I have to love someone, and by love, I go deeper than a romantic. Guy Baldwin has a phrase in Ties That Bind where he says, I love you because you know me. I trust you with myself, capital S, self. And that is very much how I feel the love between Slave Angie and I exists. It is a love that is deeper than just a romantic kiss on the cheek. You're really good in bed and we have fun together. It's really we've really gone through some intense things. We've learned things about each other. We've had to really open up to each other and live on this edgy type of relationship. And with that has come a much deeper sense of who we are on the inside, and that has made that love go in a much different direction than I ever saw love going in the first place.
I understand that and I agree with it. The way that we've been presenting...
Wait, we don't want to go into that just yet. Are you talking about love?
He was.
Yeah, Ursula and Nikita.
Oh, Ursula and Nikita, go ahead.
We've been together about 24 years now. It's been an unrecognized power dynamic relationship at first that then blossomed into full-blown MS as we followed the path of our lives. And really, it's kind of odd, but the way that my slave communicates love to me, the way that I perceive it, is just her presence in my life. That's it. That's all that's needed, is just her presence. And it's not present as in she needs to be in the same room or the same building. It's her presence in my life. It's as long as she exists as part of who we are, that's the communication.
That's very good. I feel a lot of that as well with Master. I think that I would understand that.
Well, I would say that most people would think that we fall on the love is not important in MS. Mm-hmm. And that's not entirely correct. Where we fall on the love discussion is that the relationship isn't a love-based relationship. Love is there, but it isn't the reason we're together, that we're together for a greater reason. Mm-hmm. And however, there are very strong MS couples who have love-based relationships. Mm-hmm. They're together, number one, because they love each other. And they have made MS work for them with that being their base. So while we may come across as saying that love isn't necessary, that's an incorrect representation of what we're meaning to say.
Master Michael?
And I know you weren't talking about us, but it made me think about it.
Actually, before Master Michael, before you go on, I would actually comment just to you that you're probably also an INTJ, I would presume, and that you can probably relate to what Master and I are saying, because you can probably project that if Slave Angie had the same personality type that you do, your answers would be more similar to ours. That's a guess.
But he just said that love is very important.
Yeah, that may be, but that's also because he's operating with somebody that's not another INTJ.
Oh, I would agree with that. We've never been measured, but actually, you just touched on what I was going to say, was that I think for myself, it may not be love-based, but for Slave Angie, it might be. So you can have an MS relationship where you maybe are coming at it from different angles, but because of the way you work so well together, that's okay.
Oh, right. Well, once again, are you familiar with the book, Please Understand Me?
No.
Okay. I would urge you to consider, both of you, getting a Myers-Briggs test. They're very easy. It's a 10-15-minute test. And
free online.
They're free online. And you can then just type in your 4-letter code on the internet. You don't even need the book. The book is, however, called Please Understand Me. And then there's another book called Myers-Briggs in the Workplace. And again, when I started this when we started the discussion about an hour ago, I mentioned that this is coming up because Master is involved, is doing some in-service in her dental office having to do with the various Myers-Briggs scores of the staff and the dentist she works with, and working and challenges they have when working together. So back to you, Master Michael. And if you were done, Ursula and Nikita had their hands up.
I was finished. Thank you.
I just wanted to emphasize that I wasn't necessarily speaking love as in romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I wasn't even necessarily speaking love as in the love at the emotional and thoughtful level, as perhaps outside of that. I cannot conceive of having a level of trust that is necessary to have, in my perception, within an MS relationship without there being the equivalent of love.
Okay. Well, that gives me my opening then. The answer to that is absolutely. I completely concur. And when we are presenting this, actually, we always cite Raven Caldera, who brought this to our attention in the first place. And we go back to the 3 forms of love, the way the Greeks teased it apart. Really, Aristotle, I believe. I don't. Where you have romantic love, eros, a brotherly love, philos, and love by choice or spiritual love, which was agape. And the argument that I have made for some years now is that the BDSM-DS dynamic thrives more, if you lay that out as a 3-pointed triangle. So I'm not even sure how to do this bloody thing on here. I can't even do it. So, yeah, okay, so you've got eros up here, and you got philos down here, and you have agape down here. So eros and philos are here. My argument has always been that on this triangle, the BDSM-DS dynamic lives closer to a combination of romantic and brotherly love, and master-slave dynamic lives closer to the agape, love by choice, friendship love. And since this is a triangle and you can be anywhere in this space, everybody is slightly different on where they fall out. But that's one of the dividing points that I make when talking about MS versus DS. So it's not an issue of not being love-based, it's more a matter of the nature of the love is slightly different.
That's very important, and to recognize that love is that mush word, and everybody is going to have a different definition to what that word means and how it works in your relationship. And I think that that's why we become so passionate when somebody gives us their idea of what it means, because it has to differ. Nobody can have that same definition because it's all from your own experience and from your expectations of how do you recognize love when it's happening and where do you categorize it.
Anybody else want to comment on this screen? I've got one last comment before I leave to another screen. Okay, the bottom bullet is an area where Master and I had some challenges when we first came together in terms of service. That I was endeavoring to serve her in what I projected to be the way she would like to be served.
The way you wish to be served.
Based on the fact that that's the way I had wanted to be served, having been master for 8 years of my slave. So I was simply delivering to Jen what I had required of my slave. And Jen is saying to me, well, you may be doing service, but you're not doing anything I'm interested in. So it took me a while to not only to accept, but to understand what you were saying and in practical terms in order to change my behavior. Any other comments, or shall I move right along?
Moving along.
Moving along. What ideas, suggestions do you have for ensuring a connected relationship in light of some gender-linked differences, such as men tend to sort by objects, women tend to sort by people, men tend to want to be served, women tend to want to be loved, the tendency to reach for that men have a tendency to reach for a hammer versus a tendency to want to explore causes. And I've heard this referred to as the lumberjack approach versus the brain surgeon approach.
You can imagine how happy I am with the screen. I hate separation by gender. I think that as soon as he says men act this way, I'm like, oh, gauntlet thrown.
We're in generalizations here. It's a matter of how people generally in the society are socialized, not how Master was socialized.
Say some people are object-oriented while other people are people-oriented.
I do.
Some people, not men and women.
With it. Okay, some people are object-oriented, some people are people-oriented. Go for it.
Okay.
I'm hearing laughter from the screen. It's probably Ursula.
No, we're laughing too. We have this discussion quite a bit.
Anyone want to comment, or shall I move right along? Go ahead.
I think it's appropriate that you say people differences as opposed to gender differences. Only because I'm, in a lot of ways, much more like a lumberjack than I care to admit. And Miss has actually got a way more...
Trust me, if you want to talk gender differences.
Yeah, exactly. It really should be people. I mean, if you wanted to get into gender... like if you wanted to actually differentiate it by gender, it is a tricky line to walk, especially with how many people are transgendered or non-gendered or claim both genders.
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid, yeah, exactly. So, but we do have very specific differences. I'm about as subtle as a brick, and I don't really have a lot of patience. And Mistress has all the patience in the world. And she's far more nurturing and far more subtle on things than I can ever be. And a lot of the time, I think she puts up with you know, my unsubtleties in a way that just makes her cringe. But we don't have a lot of the same truly male-female differences that you would necessarily expect, say if I was actually with a man. It would probably be very different, and I would probably want to shoot myself in the foot. But, you know, that's just me.
Okay. Anything else on that, or shall we move on to Kathy's chance? Kathy's chance, and then Master Michael.
Hello. This is my first time doing this, so I hope you can hear me and everything's working. This is a really funny thing about this this gender differences thing, because I get into this discussion with my master all the time, because what I've always been told is that women are emotional and men are driven by thought. Women are driven by their emotions and men are driven by their thought and logic. And I'm totally logic, and it drives him crazy. He wants me to be more emotional. Why am I not more emotional? I'm too logical for him, and it drives him nuts. So,
with respect, you two might want to take Myers-Briggs tests and then compare yourselves. That sounds like you might be interested in that result.
Yeah, I've done it a few times. I don't remember what my results are, but I've taken that a few times. I was thinking about seeing if he would do it. I'm wondering if he would take it. I think it would be an interesting thing too. I'll have to ask him. But I just wanted to comment that this is definitely not gender linked. I don't think it is. I've never been the typical female in this classification.
Well, I can promise you this. The very minute our workshop ends, a master will have me go back into my PowerPoint slide program, and I will change the word gender linked to person linked.
Yes. Good idea.
I would think so. Seems that way. Master Michael.
So to answer the question, what ideas, suggestions do we have for ensuring a connected relationship? For us, it's been being aware of the differences and then being able to work through them. Sometimes just being self-aware of how I'm oriented allows me to better communicate with Slave Angie. When I was diagnosed with Asperger's, it really was a turning point in our relationship, because then we had facts to work with. It wasn't this ball of, I don't understand why you're doing what you're doing and you don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's, okay, there's this thing here, we understand it now how do we work with it? And now I understand why she speaks a foreign language even though she's speaking English, and she now is my universal translator to tell me in ways that I understand. But really being self-aware and being aware of the other person and being forgiving, which I know may, make some people surprised, but in MS relationships, being forgiving is actually quite a powerful tool, and helps us to get through some of these differences, because ultimately it's not a personal attack or, reflection on her being a bad slave or me being a bad master. It's just, this is the way we're wired, and we've got to figure out how to work with it.
There was a presentation, my first South Plains, and I'm going to not know who to cite for this. I want to say that it was a Raven and Joshua thing. And they said the very first thing that we need to recognize is that nobody's doing anything on purpose to hurt the other person in the relationship. That if you're hurt, it was accidental. Nobody is purposefully going to cause an upset. And I thought that that was very important, because as an upset happens, our initial thought is, why did they do that? Why did they act that way? Why? And really, it's not why, it's what just happened and how can we handle what just happened.
Charles, could I trouble you to mute yourself? We're picking up some background, Charles. And Nikita, you just raised your hand. Go ahead.
And Dr. Bob.
I think that's where those comments of when you did this or when you said this, I felt this way. I think that's where those comments and discussions come in very helpful, because they're not accusatory, they're not attacking. It's just how you perceive what's been said or done, because the other person is just wired that way. And the more you talk about it, the better able you are to understand each other. And that makes a really big difference.
Actually, let me pick up on that and just mention that to everybody else in the room who may not have caught what you just said. We're great proponents of using talking sticks and also a particular phrase when you're trying to clarify what the other person said. So if somebody, if Master were to say something that I found emotionally jarring or didn't understand, my response phrase to that, which Ursula was just referring to, is, when you said X, I made that to mean Y. So the older construct for that was, when you, I feel because. When you did this, I felt that because. And that's from parent effectiveness training in the early 60s. But more currently, it's, when you said this, I made that to mean Y, which now addresses your background, your story and your filters and the way that you've interpreted what the person said. And we found that short circuits an awful lot of reactiveness or reaction from one another when we stop the communication and explain how what was just said made us feel.
Right, because otherwise you're just reacting to what you heard and the story that you've created, and right, instead of figuring out what they really meant to say. Correctamundo.
And I would also add to that the further apart you are in terms of the way your life experiences, the more that phrase is going to be important for you. So if you have fairly similar backgrounds and experiences, you may be more in sync. In our case, particularly where we have a 20-year age separation, we have culturally very different upbringings. And I think Nikita and Ursula, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and I was going to add that one of the tricks to that, for it to be really helpful, is to not to let those things go on for too long. Don't let them build up, and don't let them just go unnoticed. If you feel something that made you feel a bit off, it's usually best to discuss it as soon as possible. And that avoids any further upsets potentially in the future, as well as things building up, because the more they build up, the more you're bound to explode for an unexpected reason that has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Yeah, I will tell you that I've put a lot of time and trouble into disconnecting my reactiveness to people in general and to Master specifically. That I've tried to, I've increased, I've been able to hear something that I didn't like and not respond to it, and increase the time, my reactiveness to the point where I can actually think about something and then try and put myself in their, and try and look at it through their point of view. Many of you in the room won't identify with that, but I think that's tied more to Asperger-ness and difficulty reading the other person. So
this is actually a new saying. This is real time for you. This is within the last few months that you've been able to not react,
that's right.
Maintain normalcy, and then handle the upset at another time. So this is a real-time change.
Let me also add to that. I've become a great advocate of hypnotherapy. I had engaged a very heavily credentialed PhD hypnotherapist here in Austin, and had taken to him a list of challenges that I would like help with. And one of them specifically was increasing the time between hearing something and reacting to it. And I've been very impressed with that, and I just throw that out on the table for others to consider. And Nikita, Ursula, you had your hand up.
We actually took a course on that as well, and that's part of the whole, if you think of your emotions kind of like a runaway train, right? Something is said or done and you just react to it automatically, right? You can try slowing that train down and just not getting on that particular train. So, in other words, you can choose the path of non-reaction. And then once the further you develop, you can actually change your reactions to it. You can get on a different train, so to speak. If you try to, I'm trying to explain a concept visually here without probably being very clear, but it's really helpful to, if you want to slow things down, to choose a different reaction. But you have to make sure not to react suddenly first.
Well, you're in the area called state management, which is talked about heavily in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. State being the phrase for emotional, the short term for emotional state, and emotional state control. The self-help material on this that I most recommend to people is a series of DVDs put out by a guy named Tom Miller. And if anybody, I'll give you the full citation to it if you either contact me on FET or write to me, give me a direct email. But you can buy these materials. They're fairly old. They're not.
Pathway to Happiness?
No, it's not Pathway to Happiness. It's Tom Miller material.
Okay.
It's what he is saying, and I'll get right to you, Kathy's chance. Just give me a second. What Tom Miller in his material is saying is that you've got a horse and a rider, and this is the monkey brain, is the horse. So the horse has a reaction and runs away with the rider, and the issue now is there are tricks, there are methods that he teaches about how how the rider, your intellect, regains control of the horse, your monkey brain. So you've had a reaction, and now you've let the reaction control you.
Well, it's bigger than that. It's your brain saying, I don't know why I'm upset. I'm really, as I think about this, I'm not really upset. But then you're still upset because the horse is in control.
And Miller has a whole series of steps that he teaches you about that help you to stop the action, be non-reactive, and increase your separation time. So I'll stop at that. Kathy's chance, go ahead.
So now, see, my problem is that my master tells me that I'm not emotional enough. He doesn't like the fact that I don't react. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's just, that's just the weirdest thing for me. I can understand people being upset when somebody overreacts to something, but you know, he's telling me that I don't react enough.
Right.
Well,
I don't know how to address that at all. I don't know how to handle it at all.
I just had this last week at work. One of my employers came to me with an upset, and she's speaking to me full emotion. She's passionate. It's just a lot of emotion, and I'm sitting there just really registering nothing. I'm taking in the words, I'm answering her questions, but she's not getting, she's looking at my face and she's not getting anything that is feeding her. She's looking for an emotion. She's looking for something in my face that gives her the answer that she wants. So her words back to me were, well, you've answered my question correctly, I guess. And what it came down to, you know, the saying that in negotiations, the meat happens in the last 5 minutes. Well, in the last 5 minutes, we got to understand that what she was looking for was an emotional reaction from me that she wasn't getting. And it just never dawned on me that I needed to show any emotion. We have an upset. I'm going to seriously handle this upset, which caused me to notice, especially at this weekend at the MS gathering, when there was a comment made that a lot of times masters are a little too stoic, that their slaves want to see their happiness, and masters tend to just go, oh, well, that was good, slave, and, you know, pat them on the head kind of thing. And these two instances happening within the same week caused me to realize I need to make an effort to show my emotions, because people are looking for that in your face, in your tone of voice. I speak very monotone. Usually there's not a whole lot of inflection in my voice. And for people who are feelers, they need that because it's another level of communication. So Kathy's chance, while you don't necessarily aren't comfortable with this, practice it in front of a mirror. Oh. I don't know, but I understand for the feelers out there, it is a necessary component of communication.
I would add, though, you may want, well, I'm back to, take the Myers-Briggs and discuss it with your master, because my guess on this, my visceral grab is you're far apart in a way that's going to be really clear to you once you read how the two of you interact based on years, decades and decades of psych research.
Right. But I'm just so used to the like she said, the master being the less emotional one and the slave being the more emotional one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's so hard for me to wrap around my head.
But you may be closer to Master Michael and Jen and myself. We're INTJs, and as soon as you look that up, it'll be pretty clear to you that we're not emotion-based.
Well, even an ESTP isn't going to be very emotion.
I think I was an INTJ, actually. I know I was. I think I was mostly thinking and definitely introverted, and I think I was more thinking than feeling.
That's going to be a big help to your master to know that.
If he understands what it means.
But there's lots of material about that, and as master and as a leader, with respect, that's on his side of the table. That's material that master needs to know about.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Anybody else? We're now at 3 minutes after 9. Do you wish to? And you're also on You're on slide 7 of 17. So as I said, I'm making no effort to go through them. I'm just telling you where you are.
The next slide actually takes us down another path. So it's just whether we wish to go down another path.
We're unfortunately going to have to tap out. Thank you very, very much for a wonderful evening, and I hope that you all will continue this at another date. I really like the material so far. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Michael. We'll just close it down now. This is a good time, and it's dense material. and we'll pick this up. We're booked up until
We'll pick this up the next time.
Somebody cancels on us. Right. And we'll give you notice. We'll let you know.
Have a good night, you two. Lots of love.
Lots of love.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Michael, good night. And Slave Angie, good night now.